Hello folks, and welcome to another review from the Audiophile man. And what have we got for you this time around? Well, we got a pair of stand-mounted speakers from Q Acoustics, sporting a continuous curved cone mid-bass driver. These drivers are the latest iteration for the 3000 series. And this particular model within that series, I'll be looking at the stand-mounted 3030Cs. Now, if you dragged a pair of the company's older, yet related 3030i speakers, coughing and spluttering from the darkness, and you sat each design type next to each other, that would be the first difference noted by your eye. That 142mm mid-bass driver aims to provide good bass qualities combined with control around the mids. But hey, we'll see, won't we? And that control should complement the point-to-point bracing construction of the cabinet to provide a rigid container for that mid-bass driver. Similarly, Helmholtz pressure equalizer tubes should prevent the buildup of standing waves inside the cabinet, and that hopefully should reduce distortion. But what about up top? Well, we do have a tweeter unit, as you might expect. This one is a 22mm driver, and it's isolated and sealed away from the baffle. It kind of floats in midair, you might say, so it should not be affected by vibration from the rest of the speaker unit. These 6 ohm speakers span 324mm by 205 by 329mm, and they weigh 7.5 kilograms. Sensitivity, well, it's nothing remarkable either way at 86.5 decibels, so you should be safe with an amplifier from 25 watts and upwards. I would say, if you can, give yourself a 35 watt amp, and you'll give the amp a little bit of headroom. It'll stop any amplifier straining. There are specialist stands for the 3030Cs. I won't be using those in the review because I wanted to take the stands away as a variable when I'm comparing the 3030Cs with my references. So I used my own stands for all of the speakers, as I say, just to remove that variable. The 3030Cs can be finished in pin oak, claro walnut. Where do they get the names from? Satin white and satin black. Question is, of course, how do they sound? Well, let's have a little listen. To power the sound tests, I initially turned to a grand old record label from the past. Never thought I'd say that about Play It Again, Sam. Well, here we are. The band itself, Frank Black, the ex-Pixie frontman himself, and his Catholics, with their high-energy rock track, All My Ghosts, from their self-titled, well, is it 1998 album? Blimey, time does fly. On vinyl. To test the 3030C speakers, I decided to raid the Q Acoustic archive, and I compared them to their smaller cousins, the 3020i stand mounts, through which the 3030Cs have a direct relationship with, in both design and sonic terms. Now, compared to the 3020i's, bass should be improved on the 3030Cs. The cabinet is a lot larger. Question is, what about the rest? What about the mids and the treble? Well, let's talk about the rest to begin with, shall we? Because immediately I noticed a large rise in clarity via the 3030Cs. The band sounded like they were standing in an Arctic expanse. Such was the room available. There was also a clean, fresh sound to the music. This was rock with the cling film just removed. It was new, it was shiny, it was natural, it was unprocessed. And yes, the bass was larger, deeper, with a greater mass. The vocal was also better focused in such a way that it was easier actually to understand what Frank Black was singing. I was picking out new words from his delivery now. In short, this was music with no excess fat. Moving now to the Martin Logan 15Is, and when they were initially released, I think they were priced around, what was it, $795, I think it was, about £800. So in terms of the release price, a more expensive design. Of course, the 15Is have the rather wonderful AMT tweeters. Playing them here, I noticed the 15Is had a noticeably more focused soundstage. Compact, you might say, especially when compared to the open and broader freedoms presented by the 3030Cs. The upper mids and treble were also slightly more pinched and accentuated via the Martin Logans, compared to the more controlled mids and treble from the Q Acoustics pairing. Well, I think that was a product of the tight focus from the 15Is. Now, as much as I love the Martin Logans, I did prefer the space and relative neutrality offered by the 3030Cs. Moving to CD now, and the bubble man himself, Michael Bublé's album Call Me Irresponsible on Warner's. For the next test, how about comparing the brand new 3030C speakers to their direct descendants, the older 3030i speakers. Basically the same size, basically the same shape. The only principal difference here is the new mid-bass driver. So, how did the two compare? Well, the 3030Cs sounded better organized, better directed. There was a mid-range and treble structure here from the 3030Cs, from the orchestral backing and the piano especially, that the 3030i speakers, as much as I love them, and I do dearly, just did not have. If you could compare the two in these terms, the 3030C speakers sounded like a minimalist Swedish apartment. Very modern, very white, very neat, very tidy. All clean lines, books neatly stacked on the coffee table, chairs white enough to match the relaxing Persian cat lounging on the geometric rug, positioned just so. The 3030i speakers, in contrast, sounded like a student squat from the 1970s. Dirty socks stuck to a bulb hanging from the ceiling, a mouldy sandwich wedged between the sofa cushions, beer stains on the rug, and a window that won't close properly. What I mean is, the soundstage from the 3030i speakers sounded a bit of a mess when compared to the 3030Cs, which gave the ear a pure, clean and tidy presentation. You felt relaxed just listening to the things. Does the 3030i designs have more bass than the 3030C speakers? No, I wouldn't say that. I actually think the bass output is the same for both designs. However, the illusion is that the bass from the 3030Cs is superior, purely because it's better structured and better organized. And that, folks, is the basic review of the 3030C speakers, the stand mounts from Q Acoustics. Let me give you a few final thoughts, have a few of those to share with you, and I'll give you some pros and cons and a rating. The change in personality from the Q Acoustics 3030i speakers to the newer 3030C speakers under review here was both a shock and a surprise, but both were entirely welcome, I have to say. The sense of calm and serenity that the 3030C speakers apply to music, it's profound. Even high-energy music has a sense of freshness about it. That is, these speakers let go of the music, giving it freedom to do its own thing. That feeling of freedom actually is the core of the 3030C speakers. They do not impose themselves upon your music. These speakers say, run, be free, and there is no greater gift to give to your bouncing beats. In short, I love these speakers, and I think you will too. And that's it all, folks. Thanks for staying to the end of this particular video. Down below, could you do me a favor? Click on the like and subscribe buttons, please. Before you run off and make a cup of tea, I'd appreciate that very much indeed, if you haven't done so already, of course. Also down below, I'll put a link to the 3030C speakers, plus my own links, my Patreon page, which funds this particular channel. Without the Patreon, this channel ain't going anywhere, folks. So it is important. If you can support me, that'd be great. There's all kinds of exclusives over there too, if you're into hi-fi and if you're into music. Also, my Facebook group, you're welcome to join that. I also have a website, which is packed full of stuff, all kinds of things. So check that out as well, if you can. I'll be back Friday, I guess, with probably a music-y thing. And then on a Saturday, there'll be hi-fi news. And then on a Sunday, another review. Lots going on. So, hope to have your company. Until then, folks, bye-bye for now.